Welcome back, everybody. If you're here, I'm about to interview Morry live. We're talking about his amazing invention called the Lean Mind Method. This has been reported by all the users using it to significantly reduce cravings, help with weight loss, and of course, help optimize the brain when it comes to all things in this weight loss department. Morry, kudos to you, my friend. When did you first realize that you could actually help people lose weight by retraining their brain?
When I got out of the shower one day and I passed a mirror and I was reminded of Alfred Hitchcock. I had this belly on me. I swear to you, I made a joke with my wife. I said I was about 7.5, 8 months pregnant. It was disgusting. And of course, it was, just after COVID, right? And everybody's in and nobody's doing anything except me, of course, because I was eating and I wasn't getting any exercise and I wasn't moving. So I decided that I need to do something to change. And this is the thing about Lean Mind Method. I want to clarify, this is not a weight loss product. I'm not offering it as a weight loss product. My problem wasn't about losing weight. I could lose weight. I just eat less. But the problem was about eating less is okay, fine. So I'll eat less. I'll trim down and then I'll go, ooh, I look okay again. Time to start shoveling in those potato chips and the Hostess Ho-Hos and and the soda pop and all this other garbage. What I needed was I needed a way to change my attitudes about food, to change how I think about food. That's what Lean Mind Method is. It's not a weight loss product. Yes, we're getting reports from people all over the place telling us they're losing weight using the Lean Mind Method, but it's not a weight loss product. It is a product to change how you think and how you feel about food, how you think and how you feel about eating. So it was inspired by my own issues, but it turns out other people have these issues too. And it turns out to be beneficial for many people when they change how they feel about food. In my view, that's a much longer benefit that people get because they're actually getting the benefit of feeling and thinking differently about those potato chips. And they're feeling and thinking differently about the chocolate bar and about the can of Coke. That's the difference. It's about how you think and how you feel about food. It's not about dieting.
Before you can put it to your mouth, you got to think about putting it to your mouth. So I can see how mindset matters when it comes to losing weight. And it sounds like you were on a little roller coaster, a yo-yo, if you will, of weight loss there that you decided to get more on a level playing field. A
Yeah.
lot of people have given us huge testimonials about the results, of course. So let me ask you this. If somebody doesn't change a thing, if they already have let their gym membership gather dust, is the lean mind method really going to help them reshape how they think about how they eat and actually be able to help them get the body that they're looking for?
Well, again, it's not about giving them the body they're looking for. It's just getting them to think differently about food and eating. I know it's hard to wrap people's heads around this concept, but my feeling is that things will kind of work themselves out once we have a healthier and a smarter way to think about the food we eat and why we're eating. Part of my problem as an example, see, there's these recordings and each of the recordings are geared to a different way of thinking about food and a different way of thinking about eating. So to give you an example, I would eat because I was bored. I was eat. I would eat because I was sitting in front of the television and that's why I ate. When I used to smoke cigarettes 100 years ago, uh, if I had a beer in my hand, I had to have a cigarette in the other hand. It was like a habit, right? I kind of got used to one thing, and there were other things that got triggered as a result of that one thing. What the Lean Mind Method did, and what I decided to do for myself was I realized I have this relationship problem with eating. That if I'm not doing something, in other words, watching TV, which is doing something, but it's sitting around and doing nothing, that was a cue or a signal or a trigger for me to go, I need to munch on something because my hands aren't doing anything. My mouth isn't doing anything. So I got to eat. And I'd go to the fridge and I'd have some cheese and I'd have a sandwich and I'd have some toast and I'd have some eggs and I'd have some this and I'd have some that. What Lean Mind Method started doing for me when I was listening to it, and I was just listening once a day, is suddenly out of nowhere, I'd get up to go to the kitchen. And if I made it to the fridge and actually opened the door, because often I wouldn't, the first thought would just reflexively enter my mind, why am I reaching for food? Am I actually hungry? And then right away, my attention would go to my belly. And I'd answer, I'm actually not hungry. If I still wanted something, I'd grab a bottle of water. That's what I would grab, and I'd drink some water. It's really about how I was thinking about eating. So it wasn't that I didn't get the cravings still. I still got the cravings because it was a habit, it was a trigger. But slowly those started going away. And when things got really bad, I designed a recording as part of it called the Craving Killer. So the idea behind the Craving Killer is simple. A craving lasts about 10 minutes. So if you can do something to occupy your time for 10 minutes, odds are the craving will go away. But not just that, there's a dual purpose here. So the Craving Killer is about 15 minutes. I decided to add a little extra punch because our thought processes, if they're circling around food, if they're rotating around food, then maybe we're even going to make it past those 10 minutes. So my idea was, why don't we create an entrainment track that doesn't entrain? In other words, it kind of teases your brain by being in a specific rate, and it's doing that specific rate. And after about 4 or 5 minutes, it changes. And then it changes again, and it changes again. So what happens is, and my thought behind this was, the brain loves to entrain, just like it loves to get into the music. So it loves to entrain. If we can get it to dedicate more and more resources to the act of entraining, then that takes those resources away from your hunger or from your perceived hunger. That's the theory. So what would happen is your brain is going, oh, cool, Morry's, exposing me to this frequency, and I'm going, baby, I like this frequency. I'm going to entrain to it. But as soon as it starts to entrain, I switch it to a different frequency. Well, now it's going, oh, now I need to entrain to this frequency. I need more resources. So it grabs a few of those resources from the rest of your thinking to go to trying to entrain. Oh, switch again. Oh, switch again. Oh, switch again. Well, every time it switches, the theory is that more and more of your what I call neural resources, gets allocated away from the hunger or the perception of hunger and towards the need to entrain to the immediate stimulus of the ba 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 ba. It turned out that those occasional periods of time when my logic circuits said, pay attention to your stomach. And I did, and my stomach was full, and I still wanted to eat. Well, first, the agreement I made with myself was, first I have to listen to this recording. And between the 15-minute recording and the jumping to different frequencies all the time, it eliminated my cravings like 9 out of 10 times. And that resulted in me losing weight because I was thinking before eating. It was just like smoking. When I was smoking a pack and a half a day. That was like 30 odd cigarettes a day I was smoking. But if someone had asked me, how many cigarettes have you smoked today, Morry? I would have said 6 or 7 because I wasn't thinking. I was habitually smoking those other ones, not even thinking about it. Well, it turned out my eating was the same way. And it turns out that when we help other people to achieve different thought patterns around their eating, different ways to think about their eating, which happens after exposure to the triliminals, then we end up with a difference in behavior. And that's what we go for. And at some point, you're probably going to ask me what a triliminal is, but I'll wait for that question.
Thank you, Morry. That's a great answer. So, in a way, you had to get yourself off this eating roller coaster, this emotional eating roller coaster, by tricking your brain, by taking all of your brain's abilities and keeping them busy, right? Like you said, you were sitting on the couch with idle hands, not able to do things. Um, it's a beautiful. You made it sound so incredibly easy. So you didn't have to go spend hours at the gym. You didn't have to go to the grocery store and rack up hundreds of dollars in organic food. How much effort did you have to put into getting off of that weight loss roller coaster that you were on? Can
Oh,
you
it
run
was a
down a
lot of,
daily? I was going to say, can you run down a regular day in the life of Morry while he was going through the lean mind method?
yeah, it was a lot of effort, tons of effort. Can you tell I'm being incredibly sarcastic here? So actually, all it required was me to lie down, put on headphones, and play a 30-minute track every day. That's it. And occasionally the craving killer if I felt an urge that was too strong for me. That's it. That's all it took. Uh, I behave, I'm a creature of habit, just like I'm expecting everyone's a creature of habit. And habit isn't normal just because, I mean, it is normal if it happens all the time, but it's not necessarily good. People seem to have this equation or equivalency that normal is something that's good. Well, if everybody killed someone, that would also be normal. So normal isn't equal to good. But once we understand that we learned how to be this way, we didn't, a day after we were born, we weren't like crying to mommy to give us cans of Coke and chocolate bars and potato chips. All these things are learned responses. And what the lean mind method is designed to do is to help people to change those learned responses using a technique that I designed that helps people to get rid of what I call their negative reflexive thought process. The term comfort food is an interesting term because generally speaking, people who take advantage of comfort food tend to be overweight. It's not comfortable to be overweight. It's not healthy to be overweight. But if we change the way we think about food, then we don't get those desires. And if we do get those desires, we right away reflexively go down to our belly and go, well, is it hungry? And it's amazing when we become aware of ourselves that way, how quickly we understand that no, we're not hungry. This is just a desire that we have for no reason because there's a trigger, because a commercial came on the television showing someone eating a hamburger or a submarine sandwich or even a healthy organic meal like you were talking about. I remember when I smoked, seeing a stop smoking ad made me want to go out and have a cigarette, even if I hadn't smoked for 3 hours and I didn't even miss it. I was right into what I was watching. So all these things are just habits. And if we use techniques that are effective, or at least seem to be effective at changing those beliefs, then our behavior changes. And it's not an effort. It doesn't involve willpower at that point. It's simply a matter of awareness. Some people, good for them. They have incredible willpower. They can stop smoking like that. They can stop beating like that. They see themselves, they go, oh, I don't like what I see. Right away, they've switched. But for those of us who don't, we could use a little help in reprogramming. And that's what the lean mind method does. It helps us to reprogram ourselves around the thoughts of eating, the concept of eating, and what we eat. And if we listen regularly and consistently, that gives us the opportunity, just like exercise. If you do 10 sit ups today, and that's what you do every month, the first Monday of every month, we do 10 sit ups, you're not likely to get a lot of benefit from that. But if you do, say, 10 sit ups 3 times a day for that month, you're likely to get benefit from that. So it's regularity, consistently. And again, I'm not asking you to do a lot. I'm asking you to lie down, close your eyes, hit play, and you can even sleep. It really doesn't matter. Everything happens automatically because of the frequency following response, which I mentioned in an earlier video, which is basically how you react to music when you bop your head or tap your toes. Your brain reacts to these tones that I'm, exposing them to in a very natural way that allows the brain to react naturally. Everything is very natural here. There's nothing superhuman about this. There's nothing supernatural about this. It's about taking your brain back into its natural state, not putting it in a supernatural state. The problem with society today is it's so busy with our phones and our computers and our telephones and YouTube and Pinterest and, whatever, all these different things out there. I think the term is doom scrolling. Everybody is just scrolling. My wife showed me a video today of a girl. She didn't have a phone in her hand, and she was still doing this because she's so addicted that her fingers are on autopilot now. She just does it even though there's nothing there. That's not the kind of state that we want to be in. We want to enjoy our lives. Our phone should be there to help us. AI should be there to help us. When this technology, when these urges, when these things take over our lives and start running our lives, that's when the danger part comes. And we don't want that. So the more we can do to get back to normal, to get back to what should be normal, let's say what is natural, that should be the goal. And that's where the lean mind method really shines, in my view, because it's designed to take you back to natural.
So Morry, you mentioned that when people sign up on the Lean Mind method, it's as simple as putting on a pair of headphones, whether they're sleeping, whether they're at the gym, as long as they're not driving a car, that they can use this just about anywhere. And they don't really have to change up their habits. This actually helps them transform. Can you explain to people what their intentions can really do for their brain, amplified with your neuroscience and triliminals? Can you tell people the results of their actual desires and goals and how a more optimized brain can help them get there faster?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So, the thing about properly engineered brainwave entrainment systems is that we're exercising the brain. I treat the brain as a muscle. So, yes, we're peak performance. And yes, we have systems for sales and business and athletics, even pickleball and golf. So, yes, we have these laser targeted systems. But think of it this way. Let's say you go to a gym, you go to a health club and you work out, right? You're not just lifting weights with your left arm, right? You're exercising your legs, you're exercising your chest, your arms, your back, your everything. It's an all-inclusive thing. And when you are exercising, let's say you're using weights and universal gym machine, and you're swimming and you're running and you're doing all these things. After a year of going regularly, say 2 or 3 times a month and doing all of this, you'll be in better shape. I mean, there's no question about it. You'll be in better shape. But does that mean that all you can do is run more and swim more and lift more weights and so on and so forth? No, it doesn't. This is the beauty of intention with brainwave entrainment, because your brain is a muscle, at least I treat it as a muscle, then that means that just like with athletics, just like with exercise, anything those muscle groups are good at doing or can do or are capable of doing, they can do that better as well. They can be more effective, more efficient at doing any of these things that these muscle groups are capable of doing. Carrying 12 bags of groceries instead of carrying 4 bags of groceries. Carrying 3 suitcases instead of carrying 1 suitcase. Going for a nice casual walk for an entire day. Going for a hike. Going fishing, going swimming, whatever you want to do, anything you're going to use that muscle group for, it can now do anything that it's capable of better, even if that isn't what you were exercising at the time or the purpose of your exercise. The same thing happens with your brain. So because we're exercising the brain, we're making it hopefully more efficient, we're helping it to become more effective. That means that anything you use your brain for, which in my view is everything, has the potential to get better as well. More effective, more efficient, just better. When we start incorporating intention into it, then these frequencies that we're training the brain in and these methodologies that we're using around the brain and the mind to help people to help themselves to be better allows us to direct the effects into other areas. I actually have people who've left me testimonials for the same product, like, 10 different testimonials from the same product. But if you read the testimonials, you'd never know it was the same product because they're getting something entirely different. So your brain, your mind knows what you need more than I do. My systems are there to help you optimize yourself, but the directions that the optimization takes beyond their stated purpose can be anything. Absolutely anything. You may use the pickleball program to improve your pickleball game, but you may find at work that you're calmer, that you don't make as much, as many mistakes as you made before. There was an example right there for you. I said much instead of many. I corrected myself. I'm even pointing it out because it makes sense to point it out in this case. There was a time when I would have said, "Oh, can we re-record this? I screwed up. I used the wrong word." Now, it doesn't bother me. I'm a human, just like you're a human, just like everybody out there who's watching this is a human being. We make little mistakes. We make little faux pas. Big deal. It doesn't matter. But there was a time where I would have been afraid to expose my humanity, to expose my mistake to the world. Well, you know what? It doesn't matter because we're human. We all do things like this. I don't care now. As a matter of fact, I care so little that I point it out to you in case you missed it. And that's the trick. One of my intentions when I was listening to recordings that I design is to not be so hard on myself and not be so judgmental. And that's a perfect example because not only did I make a mistake, but I pointed it out, whereas many people may have missed it if I didn't, if I just kept going. They might have just let it go. They may not have even noticed. But I pointed it out because I wanted to let you know that that was a side effect, if you will. It was something that happened that I used to be embarrassed about that now doesn't embarrass me. As a matter of fact, I see it as a benefit because it allows you to see that I'm over myself. I'm over this having to be perfect, or at least having to have other people perceive me as perfect. I'm a human just like you are. I will make mistakes. I will use the wrong word here and there. It doesn't matter. The fact that it doesn't matter is a major advance for me in who I am as a person. Because in the past, I would have been so embarrassed by it. And now it doesn't affect me at all. So intention can be everything. But understand that I also feel that if you don't want to put an intention, if you just want to see what happens, then open yourself up to see what happens. But make sure you're aware of your behavior and you're watching yourself and you're listening to yourself and you're seeing and observing how other people are reacting around you too, because all of that matters. My elbow doesn't hurt. Until I just thought of this thought, my elbow, I wasn't even thinking of my elbow, but now I'm noticing it. Now I'm paying attention to it. The moral of the story is I wasn't noticing or paying attention to something that was functionally nominal. It was working perfectly until I brought my attention to it. So what I ask all of you to do is the same thing. Bring your attention to everything. Don't just pay attention when you're in pain or when you're hurt or when you're embarrassed or when you say the wrong word. Pay attention to the good things. You will notice more good things when you pay attention to more good things. And this is something else that these recordings have done for me. They've allowed me to be able to see things that are functioning beautifully. Whereas before, I was only paying attention to the things that weren't. So I hope that helps. I know it's kind of verbose, but I needed to kind of give examples and circumstances. So hopefully people could understand easier.
Thank you, Morry. That was spot on. So, regardless of whether or not you're bringing intentions of losing weight, bring your attention to MindTrainer Pro. If you've enjoyed this interview, give us a like. If you have any questions or comments, leave it down below. And if you want to explore further, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the link in the section, and you will be able to see all of Morry's amazing work. Morry, thank you, brother. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of
Thank
the
you.
day.